Hey everybody, welcome back again to Novelists Unwind. I'm Johnnie Alexander and I'm so excited to be here today with our guest, Lisa Harris. Lisa is in the United States right now, but this is not really her home. She's a missionary in Mozambique. And if you go to her website, you can see some really cool pictures of Africa and learn some about their mission work and the things they do there. So we're going to talk to Lisa about her writing journey, about her latest books, and also about, just writing. How do you do a writing schedule? And you seem to write quite prolifically while doing all the things that you need to do as a mom and being on the mission field and all of that. So why don't we start out? Can you tell us a little bit about the mission field, and then let's talk about your writing journey.
Okay. Well, we have lived in Southern Africa for almost 14 years now, and we're currently in Mozambique, where we've been about 9 years. So we are involved in church planting, and then we do a lot of humanitarian things as well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So how long are you going to be in the States?
I will be here just for the fall while my daughter's actually starting her first year of university. And then my son's actually joining the military. So the timing turned out well as we can kind of help him in. So I've got a lot going on in our family right now.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Is this like empty nest time for you?
Well, I have one left, and he's actually going to stay with us this fall, but he goes to boarding school. So
wow.
We've kind of had empty nest on and off, but it's getting closer to the real thing.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. Well, it's glad to have you back. Oh my goodness. Well, tell us about when you first started writing. When did you get the writing bug?
Well, I actually always wanted to write, but it just never was a priority. It wasn't anything that I did and took the time to do. But when my oldest son was born, we adopted him, and he is now 20. So 20 years ago, I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have a car, and he was like the perfect baby. He slept all the time, and I thought I need something to do, so I decided to write a book. So I never stopped. So it took me a while to be published, but that was the real beginning.
Wow. How many books have you written, published?
Somewhere around 30.
Oh, that's great. 30 books in 20 years is quite good.
Well, it's kept me very busy, along with everything else.
Yeah. How do you balance that? What's your writing schedule look like?
Well, there is no schedule, really. I mean, I know what I have to do every day. So usually I try to do about 1,000 words a day, and that might be in the morning. It's actually better if I get it done, obviously, in the morning. If it's not done at night, then I just stay up late, and I really try to make it reasonable and yet stick to a schedule. And then usually it comes out okay.
Now, have you always written romantic suspense?
I started out writing romance for Heart Song. That Barbara had that line way back. I guess that was in the mid 2000s. And but I always kind of stuck in the line of suspense or mystery because I just like the suspense. I like the mystery. So now I just do complete romantic suspense.
Well, tell us a little bit about your series. We were talking just before we went on camera. I was telling you I've read Dangerous Passages, which is the Southern Crimes series. And there are 3 books in that series.
Yes.
Set in Atlanta.
Right.
Yes. And then, but the Nikki Boyd series seems to be very, very popular. Is that the one that you've won a Carol Award or Christie Award? I'm sorry.
Actually, Dangerous Passage won. I get kind of, yes. No, Vendetta won. Okay, the first one. Sorry.
Okay. It's hard to keep them all straight, isn't it?
The first one did. No, Vendetta won. No, Dangerous Passage did. Now you've got me all confused.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, Vendetta was nominated but didn't win.
Okay.
So, right.
Is that the first one in the?
That was the first one.
Series.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So Nikki Boyd series is 3 books, and it's about Nikki Boyd, of course, who is on a missing person task force out of Nashville in Tennessee. And so, but the background of the story is kind of her motivation of why she's doing that, and that's because her sister went missing 10 years ago. And so that kind of gives her the motivation to not only still try to find her sister, but to also help other people that are in that really terrible situation that she's in.
Right. And then the 3rd book in the series came out in April.
In April, right.
Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about Pursued.
Well, it starts off with a big bang. There's a plane crash, so that was pretty dramatic
Yeah.
opening.
That
And
would be.
she's actually looking for a woman who was on the plane with her, but everybody says she wasn't on the plane. And so each book actually deals with a case of a missing person. And so Pursued deals with the person that she knows was on the plane, but there's no record of her. And so she has to find this woman and ends up having to find her child as well.
Wow, wow. And then coming out in November is another, not necessarily a Nikki Boyd novel. Tell us about Vanishing Point.
Well, my wonderful publisher asked that I kind of wrap up the storyline of her missing sister in its own book. And so, and a lot of people have been wondering, okay, what's going to happen? What happened to the sister? They want to know what's going on. And so Vanishing Act is kind of Sarah Boyd, that's her sister's story. And it doesn't have Nikki Boyd as the main character, but she is in the book. So I think it's a great way to kind of wrap up the series and to bring kind of a closure to what happened to Sarah. And it actually takes place over like a 10-year period.
Oh, wow.
Which is
Wow.
kind of challenging, but fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. And now you said these books are set in Nashville and your other series was in Atlanta. So are you from the South originally?
I'm actually was born in California and then we moved to the Northwest, but I've spent a lot of time when we were in the States in Texas, lived in Tennessee, have even lived in St. Louis. So I kind of feel like a Southerner, at least partly. I'm kind of we've lived in so many places. People always ask me where I'm from and I'm never sure what to say.
You don't know the answer.
Yeah.
All kinds of places.
Exactly.
Well, how do you do research for your books? And do you find it a challenge not being local where it's easy to travel around to some of these cities and, get a first-hand look about, like Atlanta or Nashville or something
Right.
like that?
Well, the nice thing is you can find out so much on the internet. People do travel logs, they take pictures. I know for my series set in Atlanta, I actually had, I think about 3 people read through at least the first one to make sure that it was kind of grounded because I hadn't ever lived there. For the Nikki Boyd series, I had lived in Memphis. So even while that's, not Nashville, I had been through there. And it was kind of funny because the first book, Vendetta, is actually set in the Smoky Mountains.
I love
And so outside of Nashville. But I had never been there. And I did so much research and you're always kind of worried that you're going to mess up. But I was actually, about the time the book came out, I took our family there and we were able to go and visit. And I felt like I had been there. So actually I was quite relieved because from what I could see, but it was almost like I was revisiting a place and I was like the tour guide, even though I'd never really been there, but I just felt like I had been there. And so that was really fun, and not the order you're supposed to do it in. You're really supposed to visit the place first.
Yeah, but if you can't, you can't. No, that's great. I love the Smokes. I love going there.
Oh, I do too. It was beautiful. And the research is fun. Sometimes I get a little carried away even. It's just fun.
I know you can get just so caught up in the rabbit trails. You go, oh yeah, I've got to get those 1,000 words written instead of just continuing to read.
And people don't realize you can spend, an hour to put one sentence, in the book. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, and you do want to root your stories and, what I call a sense of place. I think that's really important to do that. And of course, your stories also have a faith element. So is that something that you choose ahead of time, or does that sort of come through and going along with that, how much plotting do you do ahead of time and how much is more organic writing?
For the spiritual line, I pretty much never come up with it ahead of time because I think that for me would make it more forced. So it's something that actually comes together while I'm writing it. A lot of times, to be honest, it's even something that maybe I'm thinking about a lot or dealing with that somehow ends up in the story.
Right. Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah. And for plotting, I have to really organize it ahead of time because all of the Nikki Boyd books, except for the last one, are set in like 48 hours. So there's a lot going on.
Really?
And that was very fun, but very challenging. And so I often have like Post-it note boards where I have the timeline and I have an Excel sheet with a timeline. And anyway, so it's complicated. And I I'm not just one that could just sit down and write. I will just stare at the page. But if I kind of know what's going to happen, and I don't know everything that's going to happen, and there's actually things that surprise me, which my husband thinks is very odd. How could that surprise you? That one?
That's the best part. That's my favorite part, is when characters do something that's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Or when suddenly everything just comes together, even when you didn't plan certain things. It's like, oh, that's, yeah, no, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. And as I was telling Lisa ahead of time, just to tell everybody who's watching too, Lisa was so kind when I was writing my first contemporary romance, and actually had written it and was going back over it for the publisher and doing revisions. And my character had been on the mission field very reluctantly with her parents, and another writing friend of ours put Lisa and I in touch with each other, and that's why my character's parents ended up in Mozambique. And it was so kind, and you know, you talked about some of the struggles then of your kids, and it was very helpful. So that's a very minor part in my novel, but it was just so sweet to have, you know, to be able to reach out to you, and you were so kind just to.
I'm so glad I could help. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so great. It really was. Well, I was going to ask you too. You've had these strong, excuse me, these strong female protagonists. Do you have a favorite? I
Well,
know that's like asking who your favorite child is sometimes.
I think I've loved Nikki Boyd, because usually when I've written a book, you know, it's just that book and then you go on to the next book. And even like my Southern Crimes, it was a family, so they're all kind of in and out of there. But for Nikki Boyd, it was definitely fun for me because she was the main character, and actually the whole book was in her point of view. So I had to really, it gave me, I mean, 3 books gives you a chance to really get to know that person, to really explore a lot about that person. And I like that. And I actually miss, because now I'm, you know, I've finished writing those, and it's kind of, you kind of mourn a little bit.
Yeah, you do. You do. Yeah. Well, I'm intrigued because it's like, you know, there are a lot of great romantic suspense authors out there, and I've not read a lot of them, but you've told me 2 things that I think are very different. One is the 48-hour stay. I mean, does anyone else do that you know of, that keeps it in that tight of a time frame?
I
That's
don't,
intriguing
not
to
that
me.
I have read, and that really wasn't my idea. When I proposed it to my publisher, I just said that the first 48 hours in missing persons is the most important, which is true. And so they told me, well, we want you to write the books in 48 hours. And I was like, what? That's like, I mean, and I've always actually done very short, my books always take place over a short amount of time. But 48 hours is a bit scary. And there will be like the ending, which is a little bit.
Of course.
But so yeah, it definitely, actually, I often would feel really sorry for Nikki because of the things that she had to go through. I mean, especially like even in this last book, I don't want to give stuff away, but you know, I'm glad it was her and not me.
Does Nikki get to sleep during this 48 hours?
But, and you have to think about that. You got to think, okay, in 48 hours, somewhere you've got to make them sleep, and they've got to eat something, you know, so they're always running, and then you got to force them, yeah. So it was kind of complicated and challenging, but in the end, I'm glad I did it. It was fun.
That's cool. But and then the other thing is, for any kind of romance, I mean, the rule is, you know, the hero and the heroine both have a point of view, and maybe other people depending on the publisher and who you're writing for. But to write it strictly in her point of view, so you're not giving your villain a voice, no one else.
Yeah. So yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
In the Southern Crimes, I had definitely the, you know, the hero and the heroine, I'm trying to remember, and sometimes a few other people.
Yeah, there were different people with points of view in that. So
that's what I do most of the time, but yeah.
Was that a conscious decision at the first that you made, or is that just sort of how the story seemed to unfold?
Well, I remember talking about it with my editor, and they said, go whichever way you want. And I kind of played around with it, and then it just, that's what happened.
Wow. So the reader doesn't know anything that Nikki doesn't know.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I know too, like human trafficking is something that has come up as a theme in at least Dangerous Passages. And I think in another book too, am I right? Have you written about that more than once? I was just kind of skimming through some of your stories.
Yeah, actually, I also did one that kind of dealt with that in Africa, kind of more the slavery aspect of it. Yeah, yeah. I always kind of end up taking some kind of, issue,
Okay.
whether it's, well, missing persons or whether it's human trafficking or drug trafficking or, just right now. Well, I just finished one actually about the sex trade in Holland and in Europe. That was with a smaller book. But so I just seem to always find some kind of issue and build it around. The second Nikki Boyd was more about the pharmaceutical conspiracy, some things that were happening in there. So, yeah, I like to take some kind of issue and then just kind of bring it into the book.
So about how much time do you think you spend on research when you're looking at an issue like that and making it part of the story?
Well, a lot of I'm sure a lot of times a couple hours a day. I mean, it just depends, I guess, on what I'm doing at the moment, but it definitely takes a lot of research. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how you kind of get your ideas though? Just by your just kind of something hits you like a news story or something, or
sometimes it's a news story, sometimes it's a character, sometimes it's a situation. It's weird how I might even be watching, something on TV. It's just there's always just something that goes, oh, write a book about this, or, and those things kind of mull around in my head. And I don't know, this is kind of funny. People always ask, where do you get all these ideas? And people probably ask you that as well.
Yeah, they do.
And I always thought everybody just had ideas, and I was the one that decided to write them down. And my mother-in-law asked me that one time, and she said, no. She goes, the only thing I have in my mind is a grocery list. And I was like, I really thought everybody just had all these ideas because they're just plentiful. So I don't even always know where they come from, but they're there.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes they're just there, and they just, characters talking or in your head or a situation or who knows.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you then, is there, when you're all done with the story and you got that, you hit the end, how do you unwind?
Usually with writing the next book.
You don't get much downtime, huh?
No, and they kind of overlap. I finish one and then I'm editing it and starting another one and
marketing one and
yeah. And every once in a great while it's like, let's go out to dinner and celebrate, but not too often.
Oh, that's fun. And how can readers connect with you?
I have a website at lisaharriswrites.com, and that should have I have a blog, which I don't really do very often, and Facebook and Twitter, and I think those are all on my website. So that's
great. And again, yes, go to Lisa's website because not only it's a very lovely website, information about all the books, and then there's also some of your favorite pictures of.
Yeah, I love photography too. So.
Yeah, you can tell you're very good at it. I was looking at the pictures of the birds, and it's just like, oh my gosh, and the lion. And my thought. I raised my kids here near Orlando. I'm in Tampa now, but in Orlando. So of course Disney was a big part of our growing up. Yeah. And we'd go to the Animal Kingdom, and that's where we would see these animals. But you're out in Africa.
Well, I got to tell you this. We went. It's been several years now when my kids were a little bit younger and went to Animal Kingdom because we love Disney too. And one of my kids was like, is it okay that we don't like this quite as much as Africa? Oh. I thought it was so funny. So they still enjoyed it, but for them it was like not quite as the same.
No.
We live near a big game park that we try to go to a couple times a year, kind of on our way in and out of our country. And I enjoy that a lot. That to me is the one place, there's no phones, no computers. I can just chill, and I love sitting out and watching the animals. So it's actually fun for me.
Oh, that's just like a dream come true. I mean, I think that would be so cool to just go visit that. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. It's been so much fun just talking to you and hearing
thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. And hearing about your characters, and just want to encourage everybody to probably pick up the first Nikki Boyd book, which is
read them in order.
Tell me again. Tell us the names again of each one. So,
Okay, Vendetta, Missing, and Pursued. And they are standalone books, but they have the overall theme kind of running through them of her missing sister, Nikki's missing sister. And then Vanishing Point comes out in November, and that's kind of a tie-up of the series, and you find out what happened to Sarah.
oh wow, that sounds exciting. So again, thank you, and thank you for everybody. Join me again next week. Novelists Unwind. Thanks. Bye bye.